Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Chris. I'm filling in for Christina over at Vines, who's on vacation. Today's Green Thumb workshop is featuring Jim Dunn. Jim is a very experienced instructor when it comes to season extension for growing crops, and I'd like to give him an opportunity to introduce himself and teach us all a thing or three about season extension. So, Jim, please take it away.
Well, hello. This is a season extending class tonight. We're going to put the emphasis on fall planting, but I'm going to go through the whole process here. It's an actual system that I think everybody can benefit from, even if you're just a casual gardener all the way up to, really in detail, want to extend the season as the maximum you can. My experience has always been in vegetable farm production. I've worked at various farms in the area. I managed the chow farm. I'm presently now working at Cornell Cooperative Extension. You can come and see me just about any morning except Wednesdays and Sunday. Stop in if you have questions. It's great. I like to talk, especially if I've had a few cups of coffee. So we can offer you that too. Right now, I think I'm going to get right into the presentation. So, Chris, I just X out of this.
Yes. So what you want to do, Jim, is
I don't want to.
hit the share screen button at the bottom of the Zoom screen, the green button with the arrow on it.
Oh, am I still on? Can you still see me?
I can. Yep.
Because I don't. I'm in the. I can't see you anymore. What did I do wrong here?
Maybe you minimize the screen.
There we go. Got it.
Okay. So do you see all your familiar rectangles with the people inside?
So I should hit share screen.
That's right. There you go.
Okay.
Now, for everyone who's watching, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. And then at an opportune moment, either myself or Jabril will catch Jim's attention and he can answer them.
Okay. That looking good?
Looking good, Jim. Take it away.
Okay. All right. So like I said, this is the emphasis on fall planting, but we have to really learn the whole system. I was very interested in this for one fact is I could get a lot more production out. I was surprised at how many gardeners wait until they can buy tomato plants at the stores and start their gardening then. And you've really missed a long part of the season that you should be taking advantage of if you want to. Even the casual gardener can learn from this because everybody has to pull their plants out and then you have a big space in your garden. So we will go into succession planting too, which is actually part of this whole system. Okay, I'm gonna move on. So very few gardeners are content with our short growing season. We have a really nice agricultural opportunity in New York State. We're in agricultural zone 5A. So we're actually starting to plant. We've been expanding this every year. Right now, last year we planted May 15th, and we were still harvesting up past Thanksgiving. So we can really extend our growing seasons if you know what to do. It's pretty exciting, and you don't have to sit there and wait, to buy tomato plants. You can get in the garden sooner and stay later, which most gardeners really like. I don't particularly like not being able to get in the dirt. You can harvest much more, very much more. This is a system where even a 4x8 frame, you can harvest an amazing amount of vegetables if you do it right. We got to extend the 3 growing seasons. We'll get into this. This whole process is based around 3 growing seasons, not just the middle one where you're planting tomatoes, cucumbers, and such. Okay. So how we are going to get into seed starting. Again, if you're a casual gardener, you might not be able to support this. I got to warn you, I've never seen good seed starting when you just start trying it on your windowsill. It's a little more complicated process. it's great if you can do it. Your plants will be available at your time, which is kind of important for extending the season. You don't have to wait for the store to come out. Garden fabrics, we will discuss that. Low tunnels or row covers are kind of an important part of this. It doesn't have to be a big 40-foot long row cover or greenhouse or high tunnels. You can do very, 4-foot long low tunnels with a fabric covering. It's very easy to do once you get going. Knowing your first and last frost dates, of course, that's important for any gardener. We're in zone 5A, like I said. You can go online and there's many places that'll show you our projected first frost dates and last frost dates. Knowing your temperatures both for air and soil. We're going to be planting seeds. We're doing in fall now, or we're doing in midsummer. We're going to be planting seeds in a hot, sometimes dry environment. We'll have to deal with that. It's the opposite of when we start real early. You're dealing with very cold, wet soils. We are going to know soil warming techniques. That's mostly important for our spring planting, early spring planting. Planning ahead and crop rotations is a big part of this system. We will get into that. This is just going over some of the titles here. Understanding cool and warm weather crops. This is critical. This is very, very important. And planning using the 3-season system. In our area, we have 3 growing seasons. Starting as early as March, like I said, we're in our garden planting at March 15th. You can plant our cool weather crops. This is in the start of the season here. Then in June, we can harvest most of our cool weather crops and plant the warm weather crops in the place. There's going to be an overlap. Say your cool weather crops, maybe your lettuce or kale is done and you're ready to put your tomatoes or warm weather crops in, but say maybe your cabbage isn't done yet, there's going to be overlaps. It's no problem. In September, the warm weather crops should be harvested and we replant the cool weather crops. So there's our system. Planting in March, replanting warm weather crops in June. We try to get the cool weather crops back in September. All right, it's fairly easy. Okay, for summer, which we're going to be talking about now, in late summer, after, the threat of frost is past, of course, these tender vegetables need warm weather. We have that now. It's not a big consideration for our fall emphasis planting, but you just got to know that they won't take a frost. They're killed by a frost. These are for summer gardens only. These are a lot of your cool weather crops right here. These are the ones you can get in say early March. You're going to be planting some of these. Your beans, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, they're usually more warm weather crops. We're not going to be, if you haven't gotten them in by now, it's getting a little bit late for these type of plants. You can try it. I've seen some success, although it's going to interfere with our system we have here now. These are cool weather crops. These are the crops we're going to concentrate on replanting now in September. Your peas, leeks, lettuce, onions, all of these that are listed here are cool weather crops. They do much better maturing in the cool weather. The nice advantages of fall planting are once it starts to really cool down, you don't have the insect and infection problems that we're having right now. We're just having terrible bacteria wilt problems on our cucumbers and cubus type plants. I was expecting that to happen. We had such damp weather and then we had such extending heat now. Some of those plants are getting attacked. We don't have to deal that much when we start to get cooling off. So these would be in your 3rd season. These are the plants you're going to replant to get these in. You have a whole list. There's even more, but these are much of the cool weather crops right here. Okay, 3rd season is what we're going to be talking about. We can start this as early as August. For example, say you have early season tomatoes and you pulled your plants out, you can start to get your cool weather crops in now. Variety is pretty important for this. This is one thing I've experimented with for over the years, the different varieties. The high summer heat, pest pressure, and shortening daylights can be a problem. Right now, we're in a peak season for having pests around. We're noticing all of the gypsy or cucumber moths and the different insects are coming in. It's not a great year for uh, combating insects, with the extreme moisture we had in the heat, like I mentioned. Okay, we'll be planting cool weather crops now. We're going to concentrate on those. We can start as early as August, but usually your warm weather crops are still in now. You won't be harvesting or pulling your tomatoes until around September. If you start this system, uh, your tomatoes start to wither and get away, get them right out and get your cool weather crops in. Some can be planted by seeds, but must be kept moist at all the time. That's one of the problems with our summer heat. We're gonna tell you how to do this. That's very important. Certain plants like carrots, parsnips, and such, they're stubborn plants to get germinated. Sometimes they can take up to 3 weeks. If any time they dry out in that 3 weeks, you could be in jeopardy of losing your seeds. So you take some extra care there. Counting back 12 to 14 weeks from the first frost fall date will give you an idea when to plant. As you use this system, with your experience, you'll just know more of the planting times. What I'm telling you, are suggestions. Your garden can be slightly different than ours. Although September, when the warm weather crops are coming out, is a great time to have your cool weather crops ready to get right back in the ground again. That's why starting your own plants is kind of important. Not necessary though, even if you're a casual gardener that can't do that. If you can go to places that sell the plants around here, they're getting a little thin now, but get your plants ahead of time. It's a little hard. They get root bound and everything, trying to keep them for long periods of time, but it can be done. Hardy vegetables. These are vegetables for mid-season planting. They can be killed by frost. This is just a list. I suggest if you get into this, you go online and type in this kind of information. They'll have lists like this. It's quite common. You can see the different plants and their survival rates. Broccoli survives light frost. Brussels sprouts, they'll go for almost forever. They're hardy down to 20. Cabbage is down to 20. They're nice cool weather crops. This is just an example. You can go online and get these charts here. They come in handy. This is just the end of the chart here. Okay, this is a mix of the warm weather and cool weather crops. Okay, make plans ahead of time. This is pretty critical. I don't like to see people go buy a 6-pack of tomatoes, walk in the garden, look at their garden for the first time, and are convinced you have to plant all 6 tomatoes just because you bought them. You're gonna crowd them together. It's not good planning. Try not to do that. Now you're in community gardens. You can buy a 6-pack. If you only need 2 tomatoes, you could share. Get together with people. It's a good idea. I don't like to crowd plants. I do plant fairly close, but because of disease problems and they don't mature exactly right, please don't crowd your crops too badly. Use plant spacing charts. Go online. They're all over the place. They'll help you a lot for your planning. Our winters are great times to sit down on the desk and plan out your garden. Try to plan now. You're learning here now to plan all 3 seasons. It's a great way to get your production up. Draw your plan out. I like to use graph paper to get the spacing correct. It just helps me. You already have the squares. If many of you are using the Vines gardens, you're in raised frames, you already know your dimensions. You're way ahead of the game. Get graph paper, put your dimensions on it, and go from there. Plant the right times, the right plants for the time of year. Of course, we're going to get into this a lot. I'm going to talk a lot about cool weather crops, warm weather crops. Know your frost dates. Again, go online. and find out our projected frost dates. They're fairly accurate. You never know. The weather changes here so fast that, it's crazy. I like to use graph paper, like I said. So here's a plan I use. I plant a lot in 4x8s. So this is a 4x8 raised garden here. Each square is 1 foot. So I'm using 12 inches between centers on here. So I can get 4 down, 8 across. Okay, so I can get 32 plants in a 4x8 frame. This is perfect for cool weather crops. Matter of fact, this is what this is designed for. You can see lettuce, cabbage, kale, more lettuce, and even onions on the end. They're all cool weather crops. These are the ones that we start. This was the ones we started here at March 15th. Of course, we're talking about using row covers on them and different techniques, but this is the beginning. This is what you'd be doing in the winter time here. Plan this out really good. Here's the end result. There's our 12-inch centers right here. That was my plan on paper, and this is it matured right here. As you can see, let's see, do I have a pointer here? Yep, okay. I like to plant different plants. When I plant lettuce, I also like to plant a red variety and a green variety. It actually has nutritional different values in it. It just makes for a more appealing garden. You can see now these reds here, they almost got into a firm head, and the green cabbage isn't far behind. As a matter of fact, these 2 cabbages now, along with the kale, are ready to harvest. My cabbage here is not ready yet. It hasn't gone to heads. This, I bet you, I'm looking at in a June time frame right here. So if I pull my lettuce, kale, and the other lettuce out, I can now begin to plant my warm weather crops. I could probably get a couple good tomato plants in there, possibly two cucumber plants could go right in here. Just know your crops and plan ahead, and you'll be way ahead of the game. You can walk right in the garden with confidence and execute your plan. Okay, starting early with seed starting. I'm afraid we're going to get more questions when this than answers. I do a seed starting class that goes into grow light science. It's quite involved. I don't want to scare anybody off, but I have never yet to have good luck trying to start seeds on the windowsills. This is the time of their life when they need the most volumes of light. And what's going to happen on a windowsill is they'll sprout, they'll germinate, they'll grow real tall, might even fall over. They're going to be weak seeds. You're not going to walk out to the garden. As soon as you plant weak seeds, every disease and insect knows it, and they tend to go right to those plants. It's just the way nature works. Okay. Now that I hope I didn't discourage you or anything like that, but if you want to study seed starting, I would highly recommend it. You're going to have your plants available when you want them. You got all the different varieties. Somehow, if I can get with Vines, maybe we can link up and get a seed. I'll get my seed starting class available. As you can see, I start under lights here. I like the fluorescent lights. I have them, they don't throw off a lot of heat, and they do emit a lot of the correct amount of light. I'm saying correct amount of light because I've had some terrible experiences until I found out plants don't care how bright the light is. They care what kind of light it is. In other words, plants are sensitive to wavelengths. If you remember back in school, the wavelength charts, it was like a big rainbow. Most of the time, they can't use that whole rainbow. They're only concentrating on certain ends, certain wavelengths in that chart. For seed starting, we want to be into the blue end of the wavelengths. I don't want to go into this too much light science, but I just want everybody to succeed at it. I've had problems. I started thousands of seeds. They would grow, and they'd grow real tall. I'd move the lights as close as I could to get the light volumes up. And then I found out I had the wrong bulbs. Those plants were looking up and seeing darkness. Okay, I could talk on grow light science forever, but it's important. If you want to start your own seeds, I suggest, maybe I can get into this a little more. Seed starting, Cool weather seeds, they'll take about 4 to 6 weeks. They're easy to plant ahead. These seeds I'm using an example are a little overgrown here. Happens to the best of us. They're still plantable. The trouble is they can get root bound in their cells, but cool weather crop seeds take about 4 to 6 weeks. We like to start our seeds, cool weather seeds for fall planting. I like to start them July and August. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be starting seeds tonight. If I'm planting my cool weather crops early, I like to start them in February, give them four weeks or so, start getting them in March. Plants will need to be hardened off before planting. Slowly let them stay in the weather to adjust. Okay, they're going to adjust to the weather, and just as important, they're going to adjust to that bright sunlight. You can lose plants in a matter of hours putting them out. And if they're not used to that sun, they'll actually sunburn up. The leaves will turn clear. You'll lose them. Be very, very cautious when you're first introducing your plants out to the bright sun. If you can use a shade cover over that, we'll discuss that. Don't just put them right out in the hot sun. Water plants, get them very hydrated before you start setting them out. That helps them along, especially with the transplanting shock. Protect them from slugs, sun, etc. Okay, planting, prepare the soil. We like to use garden fabrics. The one we like to use on the ground is a black cloth. I don't like to use black plastics. They don't let the water flow through or the air pass. This particular fabric we're using here, you can water right on top. You can watch the water soak right through it. And if you start to realize how important your soil is, you're really going to want to maintain. There is an air and gas exchange that's going on with the soil surface. You don't want to block that. That gets to be pretty important as you learn. If you're an organic gardener, most organic gardeners learn a lot about soil science before they even plant their plants. They know the soil feeds the plant, so they're interested in the soil science, which is very important too. Right now, more I'm learning now, the more I'm going to no-till soil. I don't want to get off on this subject too much either, but when you consider 50% of all the nutrients and all of the soil activity, microorganisms, everything we want for the plants can be in the first 4 or 8 inches of the top soil. It drastically goes down the lower you get in your soil. I saw studies at this one college where they took the first 2 inches of soil and put it in a pot, the next 2 inches, and then the next 2 inches, and they put the same plants in each 3 pots. The one that had the surface soil, they call that the aerobic zone, where all the air and activity is. It was an amazing plant. By the time they got 6 inches deep, it was half the plant. So I don't believe in tilling anymore. So I do no-till. Okay, so you want to protect young plants with shade cloth. Water them. You might have to water them almost every day. That's going to be tough if you're in a community garden to tend your plants. You just almost have to do it if you can. Lay down fabric. As you can see, I try to pre-cut holes in my fabric before I lay them down. I did this when I was working with the junior high school kids, so now I know they're going to have the right plant spacing. Okay, row covers. This is a big part of this system. It doesn't have to be 40-foot row covers like is shown here. You can use, we really recommend using agricultural row covers, it's called. One of the methods here, you can use clear plastic. It gets a really bit touchy. The plastic has to have holes in it to breathe, but it can heat up very quickly. You have to attend it. It's better if it's in your backyard where you can go out maybe even once or twice a day. You might have to raise the sides to vent it. I don't recommend clear plastic for our methods here at all. What I do recommend is what's called spun-bound polypropylene. It's not a woven cloth. It's actually a spun-bound cloth. It looks like you took cotton candy and pressed it together. There's no weaving in it at all. It's lightweight. It lets air and water through. Those tunnels right there, I can just walk along with a hose and water through the top of them. It'll get right down the plants. Does not need attention at all. This is really useful. This is how we get away with our early and late starts on our seeds right here. We use this polypropylene. The commercial names for it are Agubond, Remay. Just actually go online and type in roll covers. There'll be a lot of websites that have it. It's not that expensive. You can reuse it. It's a little delicate, but it's so worth it. It also makes a great shade cloth too. Okay. The lighter weights are very nice. A lot of people like to leave them on all summer. You won't have any insect problems at all. Really keeps the cucumber moss away from your cucumbers and everything. We like to use hoops and cover. These hoops there are just PVC pipes. You can use any kind of steel pipe you can bend. Very stiff wire, like 9-gauge wire is a popular one to use. We like to put them about every 2 feet so it doesn't sag too much. Secure the ends. You can throw a 2x4 down, bricks, anything like that. I like to use 2x4s. I can just remove two of the bricks and then I can lift the cover up to attend to plants. So row covers is part of this system. Yeah, I don't care if you do 2 feet. It's a good thing to cover your plants. Okay, garden fabric. That's the garden fabric I was recommending. In early spring, this is the most important. It helps to warm the soil up. So I know I'm switching between spring and summer and fall, but in early spring, it's even nice. It sounds a little geeky, but it's nice to have a thermostat and measure your soil. Measure it at seed depth. So when you're planting, say corn's an inch deep, measure it an inch deep. Make sure that there's certain temperatures it has to be, or the seed will just sit there, will not germinate. And in some cases, you could lose the seed. So soil depth, soil temperature is important. That's why we use this black garden fabric. It really heats up to 5 degrees or more easily. In the spring, to help the soil warm up, we like to use black garden fabric. It allows air and water to pass through it. Plan out your spacing and then cut your holes. I like to use my dog's watering dish there. And like I said, when I was working with youngsters, I like to pre-cut the holes and I could get the spacing exactly right. Cold frames are handy. They're nothing much more than what that picture is. You have spare windows, put hinges on them if you can, or just lift them off. They store the sun's heat. I like them because I'll get so many seeds going, I'd run out of room. I can transfer them over to a cold frame. And they're nice for hardening off. You can cover the cold frame with shade cloth and you won't have to worry about sunburn. Slowly introduce your plants to the sun that way. You can harden your plants off like that. They must be attended though. Like the clear plastic, they can heat up too much. You're gonna have to be alert to that. You don't want to come to plants that are all wilted over because it's 120 in there. They're nice to have in your backyard. Again, if you can't attend a community garden every day, these might be a little bit out of the question. But that's what cold frames are for. They're very nice. You can even start seeds in there. Okay, care for direct seeding fall crops. This is a problem. We're going to be putting seeds directly in very hot soil, very hot soil. While soil temperature is warm enough for germination, the heat and especially the soil dryness can be hard on direct planted seeds. This is another advantage of starting your own plants. Transplants are a little easier than this. You still have to water them and put shade cloth. Try to mimic the conditions of spring as much as possible. Okay, when you're direct seeding now for fall, again, we're going to be using our cool weather crops, our cabbages, kales, lettuce, those type of crops. It's very important to keep the bed constantly moist. This can mean watering every day or more. Uh, a trick we like to use when I know I can't attend the crops is that roll cover that I just explained, the Agubond, works very well for this. Water the bed really thoroughly. Put down your shade cloth. Burlap works well for this too. And then wet the cloth down. You can go for a day or two this way and then get back and rewater. The only problem is as soon as they sprout, you're going to want to get that cloth out, because exactly like when you're starting seeds under lights, you want to give that young plant as much light as possible. Let's try to keep that plant really small, bushy, and not the stem elongating. Crops like carrots, spinach, beets can be covered with burlap. You can throw mulch down or roll cover fabric, just like I explained. Carrots can be trying on a gardener. What I like to do with those is I'll plant them in rows so I know where they are. About every 10 inches, I'll put a radish in. 5 or 10 inches, I'll put a radish seed in. They'll pop up very fast. Now I know where my rows are. I can distinguish them from the weeds really fast. And I do put a row cover over those. And I don't expect to see carrots or parsnips up for maybe 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. So be patient with carrots. Carrots are a great fall crop. Some of the best carrots I've had, I wait for a frost to get on them. Might even kill the tops off. Then I'll put about 4 or 6 inches of mulch over that. I'll let it snow on top of it, even in December. If you have enough mulch, the ground won't freeze. You can go out in December, go get your carrots. They'll be the sweetest carrots you've ever had. It concentrates the sugars in them. It's a great way to extend your season again. Care for transplanted crops. These are a little bit different than the seeds. Not much, but again, you're going into hot soil. These crops are cool weather crops and can have a hard time in the heat until it cools. Watering is extremely important. Every gardener knows that. I keep emphasizing it, but you have to know that by now. Shade cloth can really help now. It will help with the cooling. If you put shade cloth on now, you can even roll the sides up, leave about a 3 or 4 inch gap there for ventilation inside, and that'll help the cooling. You can extend the season until it frosts. You can even extend it way past frost if you have a roll cover on. Roll covers can help against pests, animals, neighbors, any of that stuff. Okay.
Hey,
Warm and cool
Jim.
weather crops, you are going to get times when you're going to have blank spots in your garden. Here's a couple examples. The tomato plants were there. I think those tomato plants in the middle were done. So right away, I planted some lettuce in there. When I was working at the farm, I would start lettuce every 2 weeks. I've always had lettuce ready. It's a great filling crop. If you do it right, you can go through the heat of summer. It won't be the sweetest lettuce you ever had, but it'll be very good lettuce, not a problem. And it's a nice filling. Beans are a nice filling. To talk about crop rotations and everything like that, just be ready. When one plant comes out, there is an opportunity for you, not just a blank space. You can go online now, and I just went online today and found out crops that you can plant at 7-day intervals, 10-day, all the way up to 21-day intervals. A lot of these are direct seeded crops, but some of them are you'd want to use transplants. So you can go online try to find charts like that. They're very, very useful. There's so much information online. It's really nice. Okay, water and protect. Seed trays turned upside down can be used for shade. You can see a lot of the seed trays have like a screen bottom on them to drain. I put transplants right there. Those are the lettuce plants. I just put the seed trays over them. That'll block enough sun where they're not going to sunburn, and they'll slowly acclimate to your sun. That you can leave that on for maybe about a week, and then if you can attend it, maybe take it off for a half day and put them back on for a day, and then they'll take off on their own. They'll be okay, but make sure you shade them. Plants were well watered in, of course. Plants might have to be watered every day. That's going to be tough. Like I said, if you can use the coverings there and water them, you can extend it maybe 2 days. Right now, our soils are drying out very fast. Shade cloth, that's right there is a simple way to do it. You can just put a fencing up like that, put your agribond cloth over that, makes a nice shade cloth. Those transplants were lettuce. They were just planted. I'm protecting them from the sun there. If I didn't, they could get fried. So this is for fall planting or any planting. When I set my tomato plants out in June, I like to use a shade cloth on them so they don't wilt over by the time the half the day is done. 3-4 days, and then they're ready to take the shade cloth out. Okay, so let's talk about shade cloth. This is different cloth than the agribond or the row covering cloth. This can be anything. You can go to a fabric store. They have lightweight, lacy type cloth, very cheap. Shade cloth comes in different weights. There are professional shade cloths you can buy in stores. It can come in different weights, can be purchased at gardening stores. That's what you're seeing there. It almost looks like plastic fencing. Some will be finer, some will be coarser. You can also use loose knitted cloth, screens, lattice work, that works very well, or anything that limits the sun. I've seen everything from translucent garbage cans turned upside down. Anything like that you can use, any imagination you can use, but shade your plants. It will really help them from getting sunburn. Very serious problem. Okay, cover crops. Okay, we're almost to the end here of our presentation. Cover crops are a good thing if you're all harvested. You can plant cover crops in your frames here. I think vines wouldn't mind having that. You do this, especially if you're going to be assured you're coming back for your own bed next year. Winter's a good time to be working on soil improvement. Cover crops are a great way to do it. I like to use red rye is a good one. Annual ryegrass is another good cover crop. Cover crops can improve soil organic matter and soil fertility. It's good to give back to your soil. It suppresses weeds, cool weather weeds, prevents soil erosion. That's not so particularly important here. Creates a better seed bed. So like I mentioned before, I'm really starting to lean towards no-till. So a cover crop would be good for your first year or two. You're going to have to till them in or dig them in with a shovel. After that, I would not use cover crops because I don't want to work the soil anymore than that. But no-till is just another method of doing your garden. So that's important too. I think we covered just about everything. Let me review here. This system here can start as early as February if you're going to start your own seeds indoors. Plant your cool weather seeds. They're going to take 4 to 6 weeks before you're going to get them out. We started March 15th this year. Worked out very well for us. We used the row covers and the garden fabrics. Matter of fact, the plants, if you plant that early, we can even get a snowstorm. I go off and brush the snow off of the row cover. It's no big problem. Frost, doesn't matter. Those plants might sit there and not grow at a fast rate, but they're setting roots and they're getting ready. They'll warm up and they'll be harvested available by June. We're going to put our warm weather crops in. There can be some overlap, like I explained. Put your tomatoes, your warm weather crops, your melons, your cucumbers, all of that, beans, everything goes in, corn. Then again, we'll be harvesting those and trying to plant our cool weather crops again in September. There'll be open spaces in between, so you can substitute both between there. Just don't want to leave a bare spot in your garden if you don't have to. This is kind of intensive gardening. If you're a casual gardener, you don't have to be this freaky about it. Just know that it's available to you. As you saw when I showed you the chart there, the graft, that's 32 plants in a 4x8 frame that'll be ready to harvest in June. Of course, the warm weather crops, the cucumbers, tomatoes, and all that are going to take a lot more spacing, but still, you can get enough in there in a 4x8 to feed a family and be giving away vegetables to your neighbors. Then again, when you start to eat your cool weather crops in September, there's another 32 plants you can plant. It's really a great way. It's a great system here. I just wanted a lot of people to know about it. You can use parts of this system. You can use the whole system. If you have any questions, like I said, I am working at the Cutler Garden up there on Front Street, Cornell Cooperative Extension. I'm there most mornings, and except Wednesdays and Sundays. If you have any questions, and you can come up and see our garden. It's an educational garden. If you just want to stop by, it's a nice stroll through too. So I think that about does the presentation. Is there any questions we have?
Yes, Jim. Thank you so much for
Oh,
this
no problem.
really educational presentation. We have a few questions from Taylor, and I believe Brendan is with her as well. Their first question was with regards to, I suppose, once you plant your cool weather crops in the when you're coming out of winter.
Mhm.
Do you fully remove the covers once you get into the summer season? You had mentioned there are some covers you use in like March, or for example.
Yeah, I don't have pictures. What we do now, what I like to do at the Cutler Garden is I made a small wooden frame that's the exact same size as my raised bed wood, and I put hinges on it and hoops. So all I have to do is raise that frame, and that'll hold all my shade cloth. I did that for a reason because, like I said, it's an educational garden, and we have talks. This way, I don't have to remove bricks and everything like that. I can just raise up that frame, and you can see the whole garden. But yes, that's a great question because we run into this a lot. When I start putting the tomatoes and the warm weather crops that are going to be extending higher, I do remove that row cover. You can have, I've seen where you can have higher hoops, and but you'll have to buy a lot wider row cover and plan ahead for that. But generally, I take the row covers off. I like to have a bed that has maybe cucumbers, melons in it. I do leave the row cover on there. That'll stop a lot of the insects from having problems with your crops there. We have a bad problem with cucumber moths. They're the little white moths you see flying around with the black dots on their wings. They'll lay eggs, and they'll go right through the cucumber patch if you don't watch it. So we're organic gardeners there, so we don't use pesticides. We try to do as much, barrier and different types of preventive maintenance as we can. So I'm pretty sure you're that way in vines too.
Yes.
Yeah.
We actually have another question from Taylor,
Yes.
which is, are you aware of our average first fall frost date?
I am not. I'm guessing they're usually in October. Let me mention a few websites here that can help you a lot. I buy my seeds from a company called Johnny's Seeds. So if you go online, go on johnnyseeds.com. They have a library. Not only do they sell seeds, they're very educational. They have work classes and everything, but they have a thing called a grower's library. You can go on that and go onto their calculator, and you'll type in your area code, and they'll tell you the frost dates. Very easy. Not only that, they have a seed starting guide where you can go and type in your frost date, and they'll tell you exactly when to start seeds, when to plant them, when to harvest them. It's a great calculator. It's all for free. Another good website to go on that we buy seeds is called Harris Seeds. A lot of the commercial gardeners around here I see are using Harris Seeds, another good seed company. I tend to like these companies. Their seeds seem to be very high quality, and their seeds are very acclimated for our climate here. They've been harvesting their seeds in this climate for many, many years. I think it does genetically make the seeds stronger. You can go to Lowe's. None of those seeds are going to be what I call acclimated for our area, although you can have good luck. I suggest to plan ahead. This would be another thing to plan for. Winter's a great time to break out these seed catalogs and plan ahead what you're going to plant and get your seeds ordered that way. But there are good websites. Johnny's Seeds, go to the Growers Library. Probably answer all your questions right there.
Okay. Yeah, Taylor mentioned in the chat that she was speaking to a farmer who also recommended Johnny's Seeds. So,
oh yeah, yeah.
Between your endorsement and that farmer, I'm sure they're our go-to spot for seeds.
Yeah, they're a great place. Yeah.
So, you mentioned that you also use the roll covers to prevent insects from reaching your crops.
True.
So when it comes to the summer crops, when you take the roll covers off, what are some tips that you have for preventing insects from further devouring your produce?
Well, it's a little hard. Like I said, I think the one person was having in mind that it's kind of hard to cover tomatoes. A lot of the crops that you can grow can be covered with a cover fabric. It's called Agubon number 19. It's very lightweight. You don't have to use hoops or anything for it. You can lay it directly on your cover, on your plants. That's a good way to do it. Just lay it on top of the plants and lightly anchor it. I like to use that for cabbage. The cabbage plants will grow under there with no problem. They'll just keep pushing the fabric up. You don't need hoops. Floating roll covers, it's called. That's a good way to do it. We're starting to experiment a little bit with horticultural oils. We have to be careful here because we want to stay strictly organic. But there's a one out that I'm just getting a little more familiar with. It's called Monterey Horticultural Oil. It's a mineral based. It's organically recognized. It not only takes care of insects, it greatly helps with, it has fungicidal type of properties to it. So if you see early, if you can see if you're getting bacterial wilts or any kind of powdery mildews, this should take care of it. Horticultural oils are very underused products. The one thing I would suggest though, if you use a pump up sprayer, you can buy the ones that have an angled sprayer because you want to spray under the leaves on this too. So don't just mist on the top with this horticultural oil. Nice thing about this oil is 1 or 2 days after applied, beneficial insects can return with no problem at all. It's very, very eco-friendly. I'm starting to really like it a lot. So I don't suggest any harsh pesticides, chemicals, anything. We try to stay away from that, of course.
Right.
Another thing you can do is organic farming is harder. You can't run down and buy a pesticide. Try to notice things really early. Get in the garden. Notice little things. You see a leaf that's turning over that shouldn't. You see spots on your tomatoes. Cut that leaf off immediately. Get it right out of there. Be proactive. Keep right on it. We had an aphid attack last year on our tomatoes. I used a very strong stream, the garden hose. I kept blasting them off of there, and it was fair. It was successful. We pretty much controlled the aphids doing that. So there are different methods you can use. You got to watch. Be careful. They keep warning us here at Cornell Cooperative. I get on the hotline there to try to answer questions, and everybody has grandma's old cure. You really got to watch with some of these. I'd go, even with the websites, go with the proven websites. If iquota.com website, I have to have backup if I recommend it, like say on like the horticultural hotline, I have to back up because there's a little bit of misinformation out there. Just a warning is all I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah, I know that I'm a relatively new and inexperienced gardener. I know from my fellow gardeners at the Davis Avenue Garden that last year we had a pretty strong case of this invasive beetle that was devouring everyone's leafy greens. This year, fortunately, it seems to have not been as severe, but no one really knew what to do. So
Yeah, it's hard. It's especially organic farming. You can't just run to Agway and get a pesticide. Yeah.
right. I think no one was willing to carpet bomb
No.
their, their gardens. Okay, we don't have any further questions in the chat. Jim, was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think we covered it all. I can't think of anything else. Um, like I said, the more I learn, the more questions I seem to have. I'm trying to devote a lot of time now to learn soil science, and I'm just having more questions and more questions as it goes. Like I
Bless you, Jim.
mentioned, I'm going to try to start no-dig farming. My point of this whole thing is that gardening is not a stationary hobby or profession. It changes yearly. Products change, seeds change. So keep an open mind and just enjoy yourself too. Don't overdo it. I find like if I miss days and stuff and I go in the garden and it's getting slightly weeded over, I'll just take a small section at a time and get it done. I don't get overpowered like that. What I did this year and I'm having great success with, I grow and raise frames too. I took cardboard and covered the whole soil surface. Then I put an inch of compost over that. You can use leaves or any mulch. And then when I was going to plant, I would cut a circle and then put the plant right in that. And I would leave the cardboard there. I don't have any weeds in my garden now. It's working great. So I was concerned, like I mentioned, I was concerned about blocking the airflow to the soil, but it doesn't seem to be doing that or having a problem. So I'm starting to recommend that.
Fantastic. Jim, is there an email that our audience members could reach you at if they had further questions?
Yeah, I suppose you can call me at home. My home email is welldone111@yahoo.com. That's WELLDUNN 111@yahoo.com. They haven't given me a email address at Cornell yet.
Okay, well, when they do, be sure to let us know. We'll pass it on to our audience members here.
I would appreciate that, and I think Cornell Cooperative and Vine should be working together more.
I believe so too. I'll pass that along to Christina when she is back from vacation.
Okay, sounds great.
Well, Jim, I wanted to thank you again so much for taking the time to teach us all about season extension.
Thank you.
And I look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Okay.
I
Thanks,
happen to be personal friends with a soil scientist, so I'll try to put you two in touch.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Okay, I'm going to end the meeting now. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we will post this on YouTube as soon as it's available. All right.
Thank
Bye.
you.
All right, Jim, have a good evening.
Okay. You too.